This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. And I don't know why I said that so fast, but here we are anyways. It is the Thursday edition. I am your host, Josh Strickland, and here we are. It's been a week. Been a week without any actual live sporting events. And yeah, I mean, you would think it would be difficult. This job would be difficult right now, but there's one thing that is keeping everything interesting right now, and that is the NFL free agency. The new league year started this week, and it has gone bonkers ever since then. The past couple of days have been insanity. It has been absolute insanity. The QB market has pretty much been solved, except for a couple places. And I'm going to be honest with you, most of the show is going to be discussing quarterbacks. That's mostly because most of the big news is the quarterbacks, but we will be talking about Stefon Diggs. We'll be talking about Teddy Bridgewater going to Carolina, what that means for Cam Newton, what that means for Carolina. We'll talk about Phillip Rivers signing with the Colts, and we'll talk about Stefon Diggs getting traded to Buffalo, and we'll also talk about Nick Foles, because that is a brand new one that happened literally an hour before I started recording this. But let's go to the big one, and you know what I'm talking about. Of course you do. Tom Brady announced that he would leave the Patriots early Tuesday morning, and then Tuesday night, he signed with a team. Now, before he signed with this team, everyone was speculating. Everybody was saying, oh, he's going to go to the 49ers. He's going to go to the Titans. Well, the Titans signed Tannehill. Titans said they had no interest in getting Tom Brady at all. 49ers said, we're sticking with Jimmy Garoppolo. We have no interest in Tom Brady. So that left, in my opinion, that left the Chargers as an option, the Colts as an option. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Completely out of left field, Tom Brady signs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, it's not completely out of left field. It was rumored a couple times, like people were speculating about that. But to me, it's kind of out of left field because Tampa is kind of, I mean, it's Tampa. You don't expect Tampa Bay to, get a big free agency signing like this. Now, to be fair, Tom Brady is he is 43. He showed some of his age last season, as the Patriots still went 12-4. They had a really good defense, and offensively they didn't really have that many weapons, but Tom Brady still threw for over 4,000 yards last year. So he's still a serviceable quarterback, in my opinion. Now, of course, we don't know what would happen this upcoming year as he is moving on to a new team. But it's interesting. So we don't have official numbers yet, but Ian Rappaport is saying that it's going to be a $30 million a year contract, whether it be a 1-year contract or a multi-year contract. I really hope it's not a multi-year contract. That would be kind of insane if they went for a multi-year contract with a 43-year-old quarterback who could possibly retire at the end of this year. So I don't see anything more than 1-year contract here, but you never know. It's Tampa, to be fair. So let's think about this. The offensive weapons that Tampa Bay has. Tampa Bay has Mike Evans. He is a huge, big-body receiver. He knows how to get to the highest point of the ball and snatch it out of air. He beats defenders all the time. You got Chris Godwin, who's been a solid option there, and then O.J. Howard, who has a huge upside as a tight end. I remember him killing people for Alabama when he was in college. So, I mean, that's a solid group right there to work with. Those are good weapons. The only issue with the Buccaneers, and this is why I didn't think he would sign with the Buccaneers, The Buccaneers need to upgrade that offensive line. They need to upgrade right tackle. The offensive line is not the best, but this offense with Bruce Arians, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and O.J. Howard, this could be a lot of fun. This is probably the best way for Tom Brady to prove that he still got it, to prove that he can win without Bill Belichick and all that good stuff, because now he's in an offense that is very pass-heavy and will make him throw downfield a lot more. Because when I watch the Patriots, all I see is slants, out, slants, maybe a deep ball every once in a while, but that's what I mostly see when I watch the Patriots play. Now he's going to be dealing with different pass concepts, different route trees, more of a route tree than I feel like the Patriots usually did. So, and also Tampa Bay is 5th in efficiency. They were 5th in efficiency last year with Todd Bowles as their defensive coordinator. Todd Bowles is coming back as defensive coordinator, so that defense will probably get a little better. And this has made the NFC South a scary division, as I'll discuss it. I mean, I'll probably continue the discussion in the next segment because we're talking about Teddy Bridgewater. But so right now you have Drew Brees, you have Matt Ryan, which Matt Ryan is still a solid quarterback. Now you have Tom Brady, and then you add in Teddy Bridgewater, which Teddy Bridgewater is kind of the outlier there, but still, that is an insane 3-quarterback division right there, and Teddy Bridgewater could knock people out of the water and be a fantastic quarterback for the Panthers. So you have the NFC South all of a sudden becoming one of the strongest divisions, which last year it wasn't very good. You had the Saints kind of running away with everything. The Falcons were middling for the entire year. They kind of got things together towards the end of the year. Tampa was bad. Carolina was also bad because they lost Cam Newton. So this division, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense for this division. If you follow the NFC South, it goes from the worst division in football to the best division in football all the time. Like, it just goes back and forth. It's like a tennis match in that division about whether they're good or bad. But this is the year where it is a good division, and we're going to see how that goes. The Falcons, they're still kind of iffy over there. Panthers are probably not going to be good, to be honest. At best, they'll probably be 6-10 or 7-9 or something like that. So Panthers are kind of in there, but the Buccaneers look really good now. They all of a sudden make it, I wouldn't say Super Bowl contender, but they definitely make it into playoff contender and potential to make a good run in the playoffs. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, Jameis Winston, he did throw for 30 interceptions, but he did throw for 30 touchdowns. So, I mean, you know, that offense, if you take out some of those mistakes, Tampa could easily make a good run in the playoffs, but first they got to make the playoffs. So we'll get to that when we get to that. So now what is left here in the quarterback market, which we're going to be talking about the quarterback market throughout this whole show. So right now we're looking at New England. Who is New England going to get? They have Jared Stidham, which, I mean, if they like Jared Stidham, then more power to them. But New England, they're going to be looking for a quarterback, which Jameis Winston is available. I mean, that would be the biggest Bill Belichick move, to get Jameis Winston and try to make Jameis Winston into a powerhouse quarterback, which he can be if he just minimizes those mistakes, which I think under Bill Belichick and under the other guy, I forgot their offensive coordinator's name, but they can maybe help Jameis out with decision making and making things a little simpler for him, and just letting him use his arm instead of trying to figure out something. Because Bruce Arians' offense is a kind of complicated offense, and Jameis just couldn't do it. And also, he's got 20/20 vision now because of his LASIK surgery. So there you go. Who else? The Chargers are still looking for a quarterback. The Chargers actually have no quarterback at the moment. They probably have a backup on the roster at the moment, but they haven't made any moves at all. They haven't made any moves yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Chargers do. They could, they could get Jameis Winston. I was really expecting the Chargers to kind of pick up Tom Brady. I'm going to be honest with you. And, I mean, I would have liked that a lot more because as a Panthers fan, I would like Tom Brady out of the division. I don't know why he's in here now, but he is. But so, like I said, the NFC South is going to be a fantastic division to watch. Remember, you have Drew Brees playing Tom Brady twice a year. You got Tom Brady playing Matt Ryan twice a year. Then you have Teddy Bridgewater in there. Teddy Bridgewater could make things a little interesting. But speaking of Teddy Bridgewater, we'll be talking about him in the next segment as he is signed with the Carolina Panthers. And what does that mean for Cam Newton? What does that mean for the Panthers? What does that mean for Matt Rule? What does that mean for Joe Brady? And all that. So, how can the Panthers be competitive, period, in this division, as they were, I think, finished last place in the division last year. But we will discuss all of that when we return.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So something that has kind of been rumored for the longest time, but nobody was really sure about it, has finally happened. So, Carolina Panthers announced, I think Tuesday morning. Tuesday was a crazy day, by the way. So the Panthers announced that they are seeking a trade for Cam Newton for his best interest, to trade him somewhere where he can succeed. So they're going to trade Cam Newton, and they said that Cam Newton requested a trade and blah 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 blah. That's what they announced on Twitter. Now, Cam Newton responded to that and said, "I did not ask for this trade. You guys are just trading me and lying to the public." And that's the conjecture that's going on right now. You have this spat between Cam Newton and the Panthers, which, as a Panthers fan, like I've mentioned before, I hate, because I love Cam Newton. He is a fantastic player. He's had injury issues these past 2 years, but he is still a fantastic player, and he's only like 30 years old. I think he's going to be completely healthy this upcoming year. So whatever team gets him is going to love him. But the Panthers are looking to trade him. They are looking to trade Cam Newton, and because of that, they have signed Teddy Bridgewater. So Teddy Bridgewater is now a Carolina Panther. So that's an interesting move. Teddy Bridgewater is a solid quarterback. He easily can be a top 20 quarterback, which I know that doesn't sound that great, but I mean, when you have 12 other teams that don't have a good quarterback, you would like to have a guy in the top 20 at least. So they're getting a good quarterback. Everyone's saying that he should be a starter. He played 5 weeks for the Saints when Drew Brees went out, and he won 4 of those games. I think he went 4-1, something like that, or he won all 5 of those games. I forgot. But his numbers during these 5 weeks as the Saints starter, he was 133 and 196. He had 1,384 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He had 12. He got sacked 12 times, and he had a 99.1 passer rating. So his numbers with Michael Thomas was 42 catches on 52 targets, 551 yards, 3 touchdowns. So if we use these numbers, here's what their numbers would look like if he kept that pace up for 16 games. So this is what his projected numbers would be like if he played a full season, which would be 4,152 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, sacked 36 times, and then a 99.1 passer rating. So how do those compare to other quarterbacks in the league? So only a couple quarterbacks have done better. Dak Prescott, of course, is one of those quarterbacks that have done better. Passing rating wise, you got 2017 Carson Wentz 2016 Drew Brees, 2018 Jared Goff, 2019 Derek Carr, which I didn't realize Derek Carr did that well in 2019, according to QB rating, but of course that is not the, not the thing. His projected numbers compared to QBs that are 27 to 31 since 2006. You got 2006 Peyton Manning, 2019 Derek Carr, which once again, 2019 Derek Carr, who knew? 2018 Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford from 2017. So he's in good company with these projected stats, but the real question is, can he keep up with it? Now, Carolina, they have some weapons. You got Christian McCaffrey, of course. That is the biggest weapon out there. That is the biggest weapon out there. And then you have a couple of other guys. I think the main thing was that they didn't want to play Kyle Allen or Will Grier. They drafted Will Grier last year. He played a little bit. He played a little bit last year. Didn't play that great. So the Carolina Panthers offseason has been a whirlwind. So first you had Ron Rivera get fired. That was during the season. Then after the season ended, Greg Olson left. Luke Kuechly left. You get a new coach in Matt Rule, who's never coached. He never been a head coach in the NFL, but he's had success in college. Then you get Joe Brady, the passing coordinator for LSU, who just completely changed LSU's offense for the better, made them 2,000 yards or something, made Joe Burrow 2,000 yards better than he was. So you get this guy coming in as your offensive coordinator, and now you're sitting here thinking, it's like, okay, so is Cam Newton leaving or is Cam Newton staying? What are we doing quarterback-wise? That was always the big question. That's been the big question since Cam Newton got hurt at the beginning of the season last year. That has been the big question. Should they move on? Should they keep him? Yada, yada, yada. So, what do I think? Teddy Bridgewater versus Cam Newton. A healthy Cam Newton. There is no argument. It is Cam Newton all day. I love Teddy Bridgewater. I've always loved how he played. He played great in Minnesota before he got hurt. He played good in those 5 games with the Saints. But fact of the matter is, Cam Newton is just so dynamic in the way he plays quarterback that you can't replace that, no matter how good of a quarterback you are. So I think I would take Cam Newton, honestly. So this is interesting. So where would Cam Newton go is another big question being asked around. Where would Cam Newton go? Well, I would say he would go to the Bears, but the Bears just traded for Nick Foles. So the Chargers is out there. The Patriots is a thing that's a potential. The Dolphins could maybe look for a gap guy, maybe. But other than that, I can't really think of another quarterback unless a team wants to switch out their quarterback and put another one in. So it's going to be very interesting to see where Cam Newton lands. I think wherever he lands, they're getting a healthy Cam Newton, and it's going to be they're going to have a successful season with a healthy Cam Newton. So Bridgewater got a 3-year deal. Won't preclude the Panthers from drafting a quarterback high from this year's draft or next year's draft. So if there's a chance that the Panthers do bad and they kind of tank, they can still get a Trevor Lawrence. So Bridgewater, of course, threw for 6,000 yards in his first 2 years with the Vikings before his horrific knee injury in 2016. So he's more of a bridge quarterback than a franchise QB, said an NFC scout, calling him a game manager type who needed to be in a good system with weapons to be successful. The Panthers have weapons. Like I mentioned, they have Christian McCaffrey, they got DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Ian Thomas. These are very good receivers. This is actually the best receiving core that the Panthers would ever have with Cam Newton. The 2015 run, they didn't have very good receivers. Kelvin Benjamin was hurt. He tore his ACL during preseason, and that was before he became Kelvin Benjamin. And then they didn't really have anybody. They had Ted Ginn, so Cam Newton's never really had a good receiving core. So now you got Teddy Bridgewater coming into Carolina with the best receiving core Carolina's had in a while, with DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Ian Thomas. But Bridgewater, he has intangibles. He's got leadership. He went 5-0 with the Saints last year with a good system surrounded by weapons. Bridgewater can succeed. Now, this will be all on Joe Brady because I personally believe he's got the weapons. Now, the offensive line is a different story, but you have the weapons with Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Ian Thomas. You got these weapons. The weapons are in place. So it's up to Joe Brady to kind of scheme around the offensive line, whether it be with screens or with short routes and stuff like that. Joe Brady, who's been touted as the next offensive guru, this is his chance to shine. Matt Rule's going to focus more on defense because Matt Rule's a defensive guy. So it's all on Joe Brady, in my opinion, to figure this out, to figure out this offense and make Teddy Bridgewater the best quarterback for the Panthers at the moment. I was really excited to see Cam Newton in the Joe Brady offense. I feel like it would have been pretty fun to watch, but stuff happens. Cam Newton's getting traded. It sucks, but that's what it happens. But Cam Newton, still 30 years old. If he's healthy this year, he can be a really solid quarterback. Now, more than likely, what it's looking like the Chargers at this moment in time. The Raiders, they got Marcus Mariota. They signed Mariota. They also still have Derek Carr, which Derek Carr apparently had a really good year last year, which who knew? But there we go. It's going to be very interesting to see how all of that turns out. Figure out what the Panthers can even get for Cam Newton, because a lot of teams are worried about his injuries. They don't know if he's completely healthy. Like, if you guys don't want him, then why would we want him? Because he still shows sign of being injured. So that's an interesting point being made as well. But when we return, we're going to talk about Phillip Rivers signing with the Colts. Is it a good move for the Colts? Is it a good move for Phillip Rivers? When we return.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, the Indianapolis Colts have had a weird time in the past year. So, of course, I mean, it feels like forever ago. It feels like it happened like 10 years ago. But Andrew Luck retired early last year, kind of leaving the Colts in limbo last year for quarterback. So they, of course, started Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. He played well until his knee injury, of course. And then after that knee injury, he didn't look the same when he came back. And then the Colts kind of hurt because of that. So the Colts were in the running for Tom Brady. They're in the running for all of these different quarterbacks. And they ended up getting Phillip Rivers. So Phillip Rivers, of course, is the former LA Charger, former San Diego Charger. And he had a pretty bad year last year, not gonna lie. He finished 15th in adjusted net yards per attempt. He finished 22nd in QBR, which is one spot below Jacoby Brissett. So this is kind of an interesting thing. I feel like the Colts are just looking for a stopgap guy so they can draft another person, kind of learn under Phillip Rivers, which is evident because they signed him to a 1-year contract worth $25 million. So it's interesting. Is this part of the Colts' plan? That's the first thing we need to figure out. They're not going to resolve their quarterback issue by signing Phillip Rivers to a 1-year contract. They gave themselves a chance to compete while continuing to address a lingering problem that is the quarterback position. Ever since the sudden retirement of franchise quarterback Andrew Luck in August, the Colts have been trying to find their way at quarterback. So they promoted Jacoby Brissett, of course, gave him a new 2-year deal. He started 5-2, and then he collapsed in the late season because of that knee injury. So, yeah, I mean, they signed this deal. Brissett was more or less a bridge to whatever the future held, which right now is Philip Rivers, who is going to also serve as a bridge. So Brissett was a bridge to a bridge, and too bad they didn't get Bridgewater. Unbelievable. Anyways, sorry, I had to do that. But this move represents the future for the Colts, in my opinion. It's an attempted walk and chew gum at the same time, if that makes any sense. The Colts have a young football team that ideally would be accompanied by a young, long-term starting quarterback. But in the absence of that, the Colts still want to take advantage of what is a very solid roster. It's a roster that got stronger with the addition of all-pro defensive tackle DeForest Buckner, who the Colts will get from the 49ers in a trade that they made on Monday, something that we're not talking about because there's so much going on in the NFL. The NFL needs to slow down. We're doing too much too fast. That's what's happening right now. We need everyone to chill out there. So that happened. So the Colts characterize their interest in free agent quarterback market as something along the lines of due diligence. They considered numerous options, including Nick Foles, but the Colts were merely covering their bases. They were looking to make noise, and now this was the Colts' approach to signing Phillips. They see him as an upgrade over Brissett, which is debatable, despite his unsightly 20 interceptions during the Chargers' 5-11 season last year. So last year, Philip Rivers was not good last year. He showed signs of being, he's Philip Rivers, so he's still going to have decent stats and stuff like that. But last year was not a good year for Philip Rivers. It was not. So, for instance, he threw for 4,600 yards, 4,615 yards. But he threw 23 touchdowns to 20 interceptions, which is insane. He was getting almost 300 yards per game. And he had elite receivers over there with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, which arguably elite receivers with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. They had these weapons over there for the Chargers. So it's going to be interesting to see him go to the Colts. But they see him as an upgrade for Brissett. Brissett, I feel like, did good until he got injured, and then everything kind of derailed from there. But General Manager Chris Ballard and Frank Reich, they're the driving forces behind this, as Rivers is one of his former players, are staking their reputations on the move. During offseason, where players like Tom Brady, Teddy Bridgewater, and Jameis Winston might switch teams, the Colts opted for the aging Rivers, whose recent performance is very much the subject of debate. Those others were never seriously considered, indicating the Colts zeroed in on Rivers long ago. So the Colts the Colts got their guy. That's basically what it is. You want your team to get their guy. But why Philip Rivers? Why? Much of it comes down to what Rivers provides that Brissett did not, and that is big plays. Reich and his staff kept detailed breakdowns of their weekly performance against opponents in several categories they deemed critical to winning. If the Colts win all or most of these categories, they find that their odds of victory are overwhelming, blah, blah, blah. Teams do that. So they said in many games, particularly late in the season, one category consistently reflected an imbalance. The ledger showed opponents with more big plays than the Colts, and a discrepancy proved problematic. So a prime example of this is the Colts lost to Houston on November 21st. The Colts rushed for 175 yards that evening, a total that usually suggests your team is playing dominant football, obviously. They lost 20-17. Why? Because Brissett's longest completion in that game was 14 yards. So the Colts are looking for bigger plays. They posted 38 offensive big plays last season. That is defined as 20 yards or longer. So only 38 plays that went 20 yards or longer. That tied them for 30th in the league They yielded 50 such plays on defense, putting them in the middle of the pack of 14. They want Phillip Rivers. They expect that change with Phillip Rivers. Part of their decision-making process leading up to Tuesday's deal involved evaluating all of Rivers' throws from 2019. The film affirmed that what the Colts hoped, that he can still be a weapon as a downfield passer, which, of course, with 4,600 yards, you can't deny that he can still do it because he just did it. He's not like Tom Brady. I mean, Tom Brady still got 4,000 yards, but I mean, Phillip Rivers chucks it. Phillip Rivers throws deep way more than Tom Brady does. So he won't have the same perimeter threats that he did. T.Y. Hilton's still there, still a star. Rivers won't have dueling 1,000-yard receivers with the Colts as he did with the Chargers with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. But Rivers will perhaps have the finest offensive line in the NFL, which is a substantial upgrade from the Chargers. And this is why I thought Tom Brady would potentially go to the Colts, because the Colts have one of the best offensive lines in the league, which is why the Andrew Luck retirement was such a shocker, because the Colts built that offensive line just for Andrew Luck, and then he went and retired. So now this offensive line is going to be used with Phillip Rivers. So Phillip Rivers with the best offensive line in the league, with his he doesn't have the same weapons as he did with the Chargers, but now he can air it out. He has more time to air it out. He has more time to let plays develop with this offensive line. And they're hopeful that they can add a receiver in free agency or the draft. The Colts can easily draft a really good receiver in the draft because this is a receiver-heavy draft. I said draft like 10 times in 2 seconds, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a one-year deal. Phillip Rivers told the NFL Network that he hopes the one-year deal can pave the way to a longer stay in the Hoosier State. But there is an elephant in the room. Rivers is 38. He's past his prime a little bit. The Colts endeavor to build a sustainable winner. They need to find a suitable long-term quarterback. Whether it's with Jacoby Brissett, whether it's drafting a guy, whether it's waiting for free agency to kind of come around again. They've traded their first-round pick on Monday for Buckner. They have to find a creative route to find that long-term quarterback. So what they did here was buy some time. That's what the Colts are doing. They're buying some time so they can figure out this quarterback thing. Because if Phillip Rivers plays fantastic, you sign him to another year deal, and just kind of keep doing that until he shows signs of stopping. And that's pretty much what the Colts are going for at the moment. So it's an interesting trade. I mean, not trade. It's an interesting signing. We'll see if it works out. I think the Colts have an opportunity. The Colts can definitely win their division, especially with the Texans trading away DeAndre Hopkins. The Texans are kind of looking kind of stupid right now. We'll discuss more about that when we come back, when we discuss the Stefon Diggs trade to Buffalo, when we return.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
The news just doesn't stop in the NFL. Like I said, they need to slow things down. We have like 7 more weeks at least without any sports. We need the NFL to kind of slow it down. We need to come on. We need to stretch this out a little bit. But I have a theory that all these NFL GMs are also bored out of their minds, so they're just trying to do stuff at the moment, whether or not it's makes sense or not. I think they're just trying to get some interest going, get something going, or maybe ESPN and the NFL are telling them, it's like, hey, look, we need to do something because there's nothing going on right now. But so we got another trade for another elite receiver. And this time it is from Minnesota to Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills traded for Stefon Diggs. They got Stefon Diggs and a 7th round pick for their first, 5th, 6th round pick this year, and then a 4th round pick next year. And before we get to Stefon Diggs, and I respect Stefon Diggs a lot, let's talk about the Texans real quick. Let's talk about Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien traded away a top 3 receiver, as we discussed on Tuesday. He traded away a top 3 receiver to Arizona, and they got a 4th round pick? No, a 2nd round pick. They got a 2nd round pick for DeAndre Hopkins, basically, because they got a 2nd and a 4th, but they traded Hopkins and a 4th to the Cardinals, so they basically only got a 2nd. So they traded a top 3 receiver in the league for a 2nd round pick. Now there's some rumors and conjecture and innuendo going on about the relationship between DeAndre Hopkins and Bill O'Brien, which apparently was not a very good relationship at all. But I don't care how bad your relationship is with your number 1 receiver, you can get a big haul. Because Buffalo traded a 1st, 5th, and 6th round pick for Stefon Diggs. You know who would really like a 1st round pick at the moment? How about the Houston Texans, who don't have a 1st round pick? They traded away Jadeveon Clowney, one of the best defensive linemen in the league. They traded away DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best receivers in the league, and they gained no 1st round picks out of either of those trades. So Bill O'Brien, this deal happened a day after Bill O'Brien's trade, and everybody was already trashing him. And then this happened where Minnesota traded their best receiver, but they got a much better haul from their receiver. Now, either the Cardinals are some of the greatest negotiators of all time, or it's either the Cardinals are the greatest negotiators of all time, the Bills are the worst negotiators of all time, or Bill O'Brien's just trash. I'm going to leave that to you guys, because this is inexcusable for Bill O'Brien. I have not seen a single good thing said about that DeAndre Hopkins trade, especially after this Stefon Diggs trade happened. Because Stefon Diggs, no offense to Stefon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins is better than Stefon Diggs. So Stefon Diggs comes in, gets you get a 1st, 5th, and 6th round pick from Stefon Diggs. Meanwhile, the Texans over there got a 2nd round pick, but they don't have a 1st round pick at all. End of rant. Sorry, we'll leave the Texans out of this now. Let's talk about this trade itself. So Stefon Diggs last year played in 15 games, started in 15 games. He was targeted 94 times, had 63 catches for 1,130 yards. He had 6 touchdowns. And he got angry. He's been angry the past couple of years because Kirk Cousins wouldn't throw him the ball. He didn't like Kirk Cousins at all. But he's definitely a go-to receiver. And Eric Wood, who's the Bills center and captain, said the contract looks phenomenal. You get to bring in a star receiver at $12 million a year. You kind of have to take it. So they get the Bills get a long-awaited go-to receiver to go with Josh Allen. Josh Allen, who had a pretty surprising year last year. So Diggs has not made a Pro Bowl, unfortunately, but is in 5 seasons. He climbed 9th all-time in Vikings receptions and 8th in yards. He pulled off the greatest catch in club history with the Minneapolis Miracle. But the Vikings decided to move on. He was a fan favorite, said sideline reporter Ben Lieber, an NFL linebacker for 10 years. He could get everyone going. He felt the love. Diggs is very smart. He understands coverage. He understands exactly where he had to be. He might take the weird, funky juke steps to get there, but he got there at the right time. And yet, the Vikings got rid of him. Bills fans seem to love Brandon Beane's eye-popping maneuver, but Lieber reasoned that Vikings fans should be happy too. Diggs had to go, in Lieber's opinion. After The NFL watched the Houston Texans trade all-pro receiver DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals. For a worn running back David Johnson, there was fear of not recouping much in the Diggs deal. Vikings GM Rick Spielman obtained significant draft assets. We all knew that something had to happen, Lieber said, but you have one of the deepest rookie wide receiver classes in recent history and a large pool of veterans. I was like, who is in play to make a trade for Diggs and take on this outward personality that you may have to manage and may be a problem? So, what does Bill's leadership, what does Sean McDermott think? He's cemented a culture. The Bills are finally kind of turning that corner right now. They had a really good last year. They made the playoffs. They went 10-6. And now with Tom Brady out of New England, there is an opening there for the Bills to kind of sneak in and win that division, maybe if the Patriots take any fall at all. So it will be interesting to see where the player-driven leadership sits with this team, but at this point, McDermott and Bean have proven their culture speaks for themselves. Guys come in and work hard, their film speaks for themselves, they fly to the ball in all three phases, and they've stayed out of any big headlines with issues. So, Josh Allen does have a lot of metaphorical mouths to feed, and Diggs was known to brood in Minnesota when he felt neglected. So, of course, in Minnesota, Diggs wanted it to be the Diggs show. He understands what winning football can look like, and he understands what Dalvin Cook is one of the best running backs in the league, but when he wasn't getting his touches, he let everyone know. Like I mentioned, that was the main reason he was having issues in Minnesota. He kept complaining that he wasn't getting the ball enough, and he's one of those players that he's just used to being the star player. Everywhere he's been, he's just used to being the star player. He's used to being the number one option on offense. And a lot of these players are like that, but eventually you just got to learn. It's like, hey, I'm not the number one guy. I'm not always going to be the option. I'm not the go-to guy here. They like Dalvin Cook is a really good running back. They're going to give it to Dalvin Cook. He wore his frustrations on his sleeve. What's going to happen when he doesn't get the targets he feels like he should, especially when the game is on the line and he feels he's the go-to guy? Is he going to play nice? Is he going to react well when the game's over? Minnesota was one of the only 7 teams last year to attempt fewer than Buffalo's 32.1 passes per game. Buffalo doesn't. They don't really pass it too much. Cole Beasley isn't bashful about wanting his chances either. He was less than thrilled with the game plan in Bills' playoff loss to the Houston Texans. Allen targeted Beasley 5 times for 4 catches, 44 yards, while throwing to Duke Williams a game-high 10 times, 2 more than Texans tried all-pro wideout. And that was, they threw to Duke Williams for 10 times for 4 receptions and 49 yards. Williams was a healthy scratch in 8 of the final 9 regular season games. Beasley goes into complaining about that he didn't get touches. Buffalo would also like to cultivate greater production from a tight end group that caught 30 fewer passes for 218 fewer yards than the NFL average. End of the day, Josh Allen showed some promise last year. He showed some heart, and this culture that Sean McDermott has built in Buffalo is pretty good. Now you're adding Stefon Diggs, who is definitely a number 1 receiver. Cole Beasley is a solid number 2, number 3 guy, but now you have a definite number 1 receiver coming in, and that can do wonders to your offense. Josh Allen can just chuck it to him, chuck it deep to him, and we can see how that turns out eventually. So I think this is a good move. They gave up a lot, but the Buffalo Bills see their shot here. With Tom Brady gone, we're going to see if it was Tom Brady or Bill Belichick that needed more help. With Tom Brady gone, every team in that division sees this window. The Jets, they're kind of still behind. They have Sam Darnold. They have a great defense, but they're kind of meh. The Dolphins, they need to have another good draft or 2 before they can get there. But the Bills, they are set up. They made the playoffs last year. They lost to the Texans in a close game. They could make it if they start focusing on that now. So that's what they're doing, and it's crazy. This free agency needs to slow down. When we return, we got another thing to talk about, another NFL thing to talk about. Welcome to the NFL podcast. No, it's the sports podcast. I have a random topic at the end of the show. But when we come back, Nick Foles was recently traded to the Chicago Bears. We'll discuss that when we come back.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So we had another big trade. I was going to talk about the NCAA, or I was going to talk about college sports or something like that. I was going to talk about the effects of not having spring practice, how that would affect college football teams going into the fall, going into the summer, and stuff like that. But we have more NFL news because the NFL refuses to slow down. So this is kind of off the cuff. I'm not prepared for this at all, so I'm just going to kind of babble for 10 minutes straight. Hope you enjoy it. So, the Chicago Bears traded a fourth-round pick for quarterback Nick Foles. They're going to take on that whole contract from what I understand. So that happened. So the Jacksonville Jaguars, they are officially going with their new poster boy, poster child, love of their lives, Gardner Minshew. They're going for Gardner Minshew, who had a pretty solid year last year. He's a lot cheaper than Nick Foles. They just need to get that Nick Foles contract off. I don't know if the Bears are actually going to take on all of Nick Foles' contract, but that would be the best case scenario for the Jaguars, but that's probably not going to happen. I feel like the Jaguars would have had to trade more for that to happen. So that happened. This happened like very recently. So, and then the Bears, they're going to move on. Are they going to move on from Mitch Trubisky? So here's the thing. Mitch Trubisky is still on the payroll. He's still there. I don't know if they're going to plan on trading him. I don't know if they're just going to keep him and just have him sit behind Nick Foles. Or maybe they just think the Nick Foles backup magic happens and they can just like start Mitch Trubisky and then maybe just start Nick Foles later and then Nick Foles can lead them to a Super Bowl. Who knows? Who knows what the Bears are thinking of here? So let's just go through Mitch Trubisky's numbers from last season. They're not great, and honestly, the Bears' offense is not great. They're very bad just in general. So here we go. So he played 15 games, started 15 games. He threw for 3,138 yards. Intended air yards is 4,102. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, yeah. He threw for 17 touchdowns, threw 10 interceptions. It's not the best. Not the best. His rate was 83, 200 yards per game. And he went 8-7 as a starter for the Bears, which is a step down from the 11-3 that they had when he was a starter in 2018. So has the honeymoon phase for Mitchell and the Chicago Bears, has that kind of ended since they got Nick Foles? So Nick Foles also didn't have a really good year last year either. So first off, he broke his collarbone, broke his clavicle or whatever. He got injured at the beginning of the year. He came back halfway through the year, played like 3 games, was really bad in those 3 games, and then they decided, okay, Gardner Minshew is going back out. So is Nick Foles really the best option right now, especially with Andy Dalton on the market? Cam Newton to the Bears has been a thing since the season ended. Ever since rumors about Cam Newton getting traded even started. So this move doesn't make a lot of sense to me because Nick Foles, yes, he's had good years. And, yeah, I mean, but is Nick Foles? I mean, he's had good years, but he's only had one great year, and that year he didn't even start most of the year. He started at the end of the year, and he kind of struggled. He played fantastic in the playoffs, played fantastic in the Super Bowl. But other than that, Nick Foles is kind of just there. I mean, I hate to talk trash about it. I love Nick Foles. Love him, but this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. This trade doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The Bears, there's so many other options you can get. Andy Dalton, like I mentioned, could have got Andy Dalton, could have got Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston would have at least made your offense a little bit more interesting. Cam Newton was on the table as well. But no, they decided to go with Nick Foles. So now the Jaguars are officially going with Gardner Minshew. Now the Bears, now we have a weird dynamic going on in the Bears. So is Mitch Trubisky going to start and Nick Foles is just going to be the backup? And if Mitch plays bad again, then you start Nick Foles. Are they going to start Nick Foles and then just have Mitch kind of there and have a whole awkward thing going on there? There's no really good way to do this. I mean, if you're Mitch Trubisky, do you want to be replaced by Nick Foles? I mean, really? So, here are the official parts of it. The Jaguars trading Nick Foles to the Chicago Bears in exchange for a 4th-round pick, which is the number is 140th overall pick. So NFL Media's Mike Garofalo, as that Foles will restructure his contract as part of the deal, so that's good. His contract with the Jaguars was $88 million over 4 years, which was a lot. He suffered an injury in week 1, essentially lost his starting job to rookie Gardner Minshew, because Gardner Minshew just captured all the hearts of everybody. So in 4 games, Foles completed 77 of 117 passes for 736 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns and threw for 2 interceptions. He's a 3rd-round pick out of Arizona. He turned 31 this past year. On the Jaguars, and the Jaguars now have 12 picks in the 2020 NFL Draft, which is crazy, while Chicago only has 2 second-round picks in the first 4 rounds. So the Jaguars have 12 picks in the NFL Draft at the moment. They could overhaul their entire team with those 12 picks, and it's going to be interesting to see where they go. I mean, they may be making a lot of trades. They're effectively rebuilding without tanking completely. I think Gardner Minshew kind of ruined their tanking opportunities there. But it's kind of a good thing. You like it when a quarterback ruins your tanking opportunity, because then you get to use that quarterback. But the Jaguars are kind of sitting pretty at the moment. The Texans traded DeAndre Hopkins. They still have Deshaun Watson. The Colts got Phillip Rivers, so the Colts are looking to win that division at the moment. But the Jaguars, they're kind of building for the future. If Gardner Minshew can at least have the similar production as he did last year, then they can keep him and he can be a serviceable quarterback during this whole rebuild. And then maybe when they're ready to compete again, they can get a bigger guy, a better quarterback there. Or they can keep him and try that. I mean, I would love that. I love Gardner Minshew. He's great. But this is such an interesting I really don't understand this trade. I really don't. And yeah, like I said, this happened an hour ago. This happened like 20 minutes before I started recording, and I literally just put it in the Google Doc that I have, and I was like, okay, we're doing this. Matt Nagy has worked with Nick Foles in the past. They know each other very well, so maybe that was a reason that this happened. But I still don't understand it, because you ruin your relationship with Mitchell Trubisky, who you still think could be that guy. I mean, he's still there for at least another year or two. He's still on his rookie contract. And Nick Foles, he's not the best replacement. I mean, it's kind of the Sam Bradford effect, I would put it. Everyone thinks he's an upgrade over what they have now, and then that guy plays for you, and you're just kind of like, is he an upgrade? Now we have to upgrade again. So the way I see Nick Foles is he's like a mild upgrade over Mitchell Trubisky. But overall, you're still going to have to get another guy a year or 2 years down the line if Mitch Trubisky doesn't grow into his own. So I don't really understand this trade at all. I can say that multiple times. I just saying. I like Nick Foles, but the Bears, they probably feel pretty bad right now because they passed on Deshaun Watson. They passed on Josh Allen, I'm pretty sure. No, they didn't pass on Josh Allen, but they passed on Patrick Mahomes, which I don't count Patrick Mahomes. People mention that all the time when they're talking about Mitch Trubisky because Patrick Mahomes, he's the best quarterback in the league at the moment, but nobody really saw him coming. I mean, he was still drafted in the first round, but nobody really thought of him that highly. But Deshaun Watson, they specifically looked over to get Mitch Trubisky. And yeah, who knew a quarterback that played for North Carolina wasn't very good? Sorry. So that's it for the NFL talk. We have one more segment, and this segment is now the random sports segment. We will be talking about the glorious sport that is chess boxing when we return.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not know what I am about to talk about, please look it up. It's the same. This is going to be the same segment as the Marvel Olympics because I mean it's just something that is enjoyable and it's fun to just talk about in general. So here it is. This is a new segment that I'm going to be doing until sports comes back or until I run out of things to talk about. So this is going to be my random sport of the show of the day. It's random sport of the day. On Tuesday we talked about Marvel Olympics. Now we're going to talk about chess boxing. Now. Let's talk this out. So you got chess, which is a board game, of course, which is one of the oldest board games of all time, and it is one of the most strategically complex games because each chess game more than likely has a different outcome than the chess game before. Like the possibilities are technically endless in chess. And then you have boxing, which is a very physical sport, very athletic, very you're punching a dude in the face. And you have to endure the punches. You also have to keep your stamina up, and you got to train for 6 months at a time to be prepared for your match. And yeah, and then you have chess boxing. So chess boxing. That is where it is a hybrid that combines two traditional pastimes, which is chess, a cerebral board game, and boxing, which is a physical sport. The competitors fight in alternating rounds of chess and boxing. Chess boxing was invented by French comic book artist Inky Bilal and adapted by Dutch performance artist Leppie Roeping, I don't know, these weird names, as an art performance, and has subsequently grown into a competitive sport. Chess boxing is particularly popular in Germany, UK, India, and Russia. So, this started in like 2003, in case you were wondering. It started in like 1992. This is a very recent thing. So basically, here's how it works. You do one round of chess. You play chess for like 3 minutes. You do one round of chess. Then once that round's over, you then do one round of boxing. You box for 3 minutes. And then after that, you go back to chess. 3 minutes of chess, 3 minutes of boxing. You keep doing that until someone's either knocked out or someone loses at chess. It was invented by Dutch performance artist Leppie Roeping. His idea was to create a new sport fusing the two disciplines, chess and boxing. And it was written by a French comic book artist, which I already mentioned that. It portrays chess boxing world championship. In the comic book version, however, the opponents fight an entire boxing match before they face each other in a game of chess. Finding this to be impractical, Ruping developed the idea further until it turned into the competitive sport that chess boxing is today, with alternating rounds of chess and boxing and detailed set of rules and regulations. An earlier version of combining chess and boxing was said to have taken place in the boxing club outside of London in the late 1970s. The Robinson brothers were in the habit of playing a round of chess against one another after a training session at their boxing club. However, no direct correlation can be made between Robinson brothers chess playing and chess boxing. Same goes for Kung Fu movie Mystery of Chess Boxing, as well as the Wu-Tang Clan song The Mystery of Chess Boxing. So there's a lot of random stuff going on right now. You got comic books, you got a Kung Fu movie, you got a Wu-Tang Clan song. It's an interesting thing going on. So the first chess boxing competition took place in Berlin in 2003. That same year, the first World Championship fight was held in Amsterdam in cooperation with the Dutch Boxing Association, as well as the Dutch Chess Federation, and under the auspices of the World Chess Boxing Organization, the WCBO. That was founded in Berlin shortly before. Dutch middleweight fighters Lepe Ruping and Jean-Louis Venstra face each other off in the ring. After his opponent exceeding the chess time limit, Ruping won the fight in the 11th round, going down in the history books as the first ever world chess boxing champion. The same goes for the Chess Boxing Club Berlin, created in the following year, 2004. It's first of its kind, making Berlin the birthplace of chess boxing. Are you interested yet? No, seriously, look this up. I mean, it is insane. So let's go on to the rules. So chess boxing fight consists of 11 rounds, 6 rounds of chess, 5 rounds of boxing. And a victory in either chess or boxing wins and ends the entire contest. Chess and boxing rounds alternate, and a full distance contest begins and ends with a round of chess. Each round lasts 3 minutes, regardless of whether it involves chess or boxing. A single chess game is played over 6 chess rounds. These total 18 minutes. Each player is subject to a time control of 9 minutes with no increment to make all of their moves. Just blitz chess. That's what it has in parentheses. After each chess round, the exact setup is digitally recorded and then repositioned before the following chess round. The breaks between chess and boxing rounds usually last 60 seconds. Duration of the rounds and overall fight time in amateur chess boxing fights can change to some degree, as in, for example, youth tournaments and exhibition fights. So here are the decisions of these fights. So a victory by knockout or technical knockout in boxing, a victory by checkmate in chess, loss due to exceeding the chess game's time control, victory due to disqualification of his or her opponent by the referee due to inactivity due to overextended playing time. Chess or boxing rounds followed multiple warnings. This rule prevents a player who is in an obviously lost position in one arena from stalling in order to attempt to win in the other. Loss by resignation in chess or boxing rounds. In the case that neither of the chess boxers win in regulation time and the chess game ends in a draw, the fighter who is ahead on boxing points wins the overall bout. In case the scoreboard is also tied, the fighter that used the black chess pieces will be named the winner, which is weird. But that's due to first move advantage in chess. That has not occurred ever, apparently. So, there you go. So we have weight classes, of course. Men's weight classes are lightweight, middleweight, light heavyweight, and women is the same thing. Particular requirements in training. A chess boxer must have strong skills in both chess and boxing in order to be permitted to compete in a professional chess boxing fight. The current minimum requirements to fight in a chess boxing global event include an LEO rating of 1600 and a record of at least 50 amateur bouts fought in boxing or another similar martial art. One deciding factor in chess boxing is that the fighters have to mainly train in speed chess. The skills required by speed chess are different from those for chess using classical time controls. However, chess boxing is not only the ability to master both sports, but above all, being able to withstand the constant switch from a full contact sport to a thinking sport round after round. After 3 minutes of boxing, pulses are racing, yet the opponents have to face each other at the chessboard, barely having taken a break, and then have to perform calmly and think tactically. This switch becomes increasingly hard for the athletes as the fight goes on and they become tired. In order to train these skills, a specialized chess boxing training is used in which physical interval training forms are combined with blitz or speed chess games. Therefore, the fighters adapt the rhythm of a chess boxing bout. They will use exercises like track chess or stair chess, in which training partners will play an 18-minute game of speed chess over 6 rounds with extensive running exercises in between, such as a 400-meter sprint or stair sprints. Other common methods of training combine speed chess games with strength exercises such as push-ups. The classical chess boxing training is box sparring combined in a game of speed chess. So that's a lot. That's how you train for it. Then it has a list of champions, which we're not going to worry about right now. It talks about the World Chess Boxing Organization, which I'm not going to worry about that right now because we're not going to talk about that. So there is a feature-length documentary about chess boxing entitled Chess Boxing, The King's Discipline. Follows the development of the sport over the span of 3 years as the promoters in Berlin, London, Los Angeles each attempt to bring their differing visions for the sport to the mainstream audience. I have not watched this, but I'm going to now that I know about it. It's completely independent, produced and directed by Canadian filmmaker David Bidden and Dara Bryan. That's a name right there, under the banner of Anonymous Pineapple Productions. So there it is. In popular culture, the sport itself is the namesake of Wu-Tang Clan song The Mystery of Chess Boxing, and chess itself is a commonly used metaphor for strategy and conflict within the group's work. So there you go. You now know chess boxing. I hope you use that information wisely. I hope you look it up on YouTube. It is really a thing to watch. If you like boxing, if you like chess even a little bit, it's an interesting watch. At least you got nothing else to do, to be honest, so just go ahead and watch it. I don't know what I'm going to do on Sunday, but we'll get to that when we get to that. I have a plethora of random sports in my brain, and I can also look it up. So, yeah. I mean, this also is not limited to just random sports that I know. I can also do just Olympic sports that people just don't generally know about, period. So we'll get to that on Sunday, but thank you for listening to this episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. You can follow us, rate us, subscribe to wherever you get your podcast, and follow me on Twitter at Strickland_Josh, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and hopefully you are practicing self-distancing, social distancing, and I hope we can get through this together. So, see y'all on Sunday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.